We were forced from our home at gunpoint. I had you kids to consider. But it was wrong, Dad. By going, you passively consented. Then what do you think you would have done? I would have protested. It was wrong. I would have organized my friends. We would have protested and done everything we could to stop it. That's the trouble with Japanese. We're too passive. Someone should have spoken up and protested. Yes, I can imagine you doing that, but I had you and the family to think about. You'll understand someday. When I grow up, is that it? Well, I am growing up, and I do understand. Dad, you led us like sheep to a slaughter into a barbed wire prison. Maybe you're right. It still pains me to this day that arrogant boy's outspoken bluntness inflicted on my father, a man who knew the anguish of those dark internment years more intensely than that boy could ever understand. I spoke up righteously as my father suffered in silence. For both of us, Rower and Tule Lake were still not history. Japanese and proud, we will not be silent. Kitao, Kitao, get down. Dad, Dad. This way, hurry. The terror I felt that day remained a vivid memory. However, our reason for being there was not so clear until years later. During our after-dinner discussions, Daddy would reveal more details about that time in our lives, filling in some of the gaps that escaped me. It was a demonstration in protest of the arrest of a man accused of being radical. Was he? No, but regardless of whether he was or not, it was important to exercise our right to assemble, send a message that we were united as a group and opposed to their actions. It dawned on me in that moment I had been participating in democracy as far back as I can remember. That is the strength of our system. Good people organized, speaking loudly and clearly, engaged in the democratic process. There was support from the outside world as well. Some people saw injustice for what it was and sought to do something about it. Each month, a Quaker missionary named Herbert Nicholson delivered books from the Brahmin bookstore to the nearby camps. He usually visited the Manzanar, Poston, and Gila River camps, but he went to Topaz, Medoko, Heart Mountain, and Apache as well. Although he had been granted permission by the camp directors to come and go as he pleased, not everyone appreciated his work. After he was attacked, the people of Manzanar assumed they'd seen the last of Herbert. But sure enough, the next month on the same date, Herbert was back at Manzanar with more books. He went above and beyond for the internees, delivering books, donations, personal effects, and once even a loved one's cremated remains. He also took pets to veterinarians outside of camp. The doctor said he's going to be okay. The man devoted his life to advocating for Japanese Americans during as well as after the war. July 1st, 1944. Is something wrong, Daddy? Many things. But today is okay. Daddy was right about the camp that day, but wrong about the other events unfolding far away in Washington, D.C. A few months earlier, one of the most painful and complicated issues to arise from the mass incarceration of the Japanese Americans was set in motion. A bill that would expropriate certain persons who have openly allowed their disloyalty to the United States and have disclaimed loyalty to the United States, although they are born in this country. H.R. 413 was drafted by Attorney General Francis Biddle. The bill gave us the right to give up our rights as U.S. citizens. If we did, we would officially become the enemy aliens they already believed us to be. When the House voted, H.R. 413 passed by a vote of 111 to 23. 4 months later, to the day, the bill came before the Senate. We are hopeful that a number of Japanese will take advantage of the procedure outlined in the bill. That way we may offer them the imperial government of Japan in exchange for American citizenships that are now being held. The bill will grant an opportunity for individuals who feel loyalty to the emperor to renounce their citizenship so that the United States will be able to deport them. The Senate committee passed the bill with minimal debate and zero opposition. On July 1st, 1944, Public Law 78405 was signed by the president. We now had the right to become enemy aliens. While Congress would not admit to targeting the Nisi population, Nisi would be the most affected by the new law. Remember, Nisi are Japanese Americans who were born in America. America treats you like garbage. Why keep taking their racist outrages? Take some pride in our racial heritage. Everybody wants us to leave for Japan. What do we do? As always, we will choose what is best together. The week before Christmas held a new complication. They are closing the camp. When? This says 6 months to a year. Then we have to leave to a lake. The news caused terror and confusion within the camp. Where will we go? What will we eat? I've told you all I know. When I get more information, I will share it. They are throwing us to the wolves. Prejudice against Japanese Americans still raged on the West Coast and elsewhere. We're free. We can really go home. Don't be a fool. You think our homes are still there? You think white people will welcome us with open arms? The irony was that the barbed wire fences that incarcerated us also protected us. If the fences were no longer there, we would be in danger. Though Attorney General Biddle had been authorized to accept renounced citizenship since October, only a few Japanese Americans had taken the government up on the offer. We are taking an official count. And are any of you planning to renounce your citizenship? What if we do? Then you stay safe in here in the camp, inside the fence. I told you your loyalty to the U.S. was foolish. After Biddle's announcement, with officials implying it was unsafe outside the fences, the message was clear. We have to renounce so we can keep our family safe and together. It is a risk. What if it doesn't work? State your name and give your statement. My name is Tamiro Fachara, and I renounce. Within weeks, thousands of Japanese Americans at Tule Lake gave up their citizenship. To many, it already seemed worthless. Loyal to Japan! While some protested against the U.S. government, lured by pro-Japanese militants. Others had more personal concerns, with thoughts of trying to force Washington's hand in order to protect her family. My mother made the bold decision to renounce her citizenship. Next, they won't be able to deport all of us. They will have no choice but to keep the camps open. It would only be a few months before we would learn what miscalculation that had been. In August of 1945, news from the outside world reverberated throughout the camp of a devastating attack on Japan. There is reason to believe that the Japanese city of Hiroshima no longer exists. It's coming from the radio. Did you hear? It can't be. But my mother is over there. My sister as well. It's not true. They lie to confuse us. Distrust of outside news was nothing new. The same thing had happened when President Roosevelt had passed away. Some people in camp thought it was propaganda intended to keep us off guard. But just 3 days after Hiroshima, Nagasaki was also bombed. Many families throughout the camp were directly impacted, ours included. Mama, my mother, my father, your grandparents. No way to know if they're okay. It was a devastating bombing, an incredible number of people killed. But you've got to go on living for your own sake and for that of our children. An eerie calm took hold of the camp. Riots were replaced by silence. Big change was on the horizon. Japan has surrendered. The war is over. Lies! I don't believe it. It's a trick. It is no trick. We must prepare ourselves for the eventual closing of this camp. The government had cut all services to the camp, encouraging many families to move out. But for those who renounced their citizenship, there was no choice. I worry about the future, what we do in Japan. Whatever happens, we'll be together. The first ship of deported enemy aliens was scheduled to depart on November 15, 1945. Mama was scheduled to be on that ship. Born in Sacramento, Mama, like so many others, would be deported to Japan, a country devastated by years of war. And you no longer want to give up your U.S. citizenship? San Francisco lawyer Wayne Collins had challenged Order 9066 all the way up to the Supreme Court. Now, after visiting Tule Lake, he quickly became committed to helping the renunciation, I don't know what that word is, crisis. Like Mama, thousands of prisoners had given up their citizenship in desperate bid to protect their families. But with the war over and the camp shutting down, suddenly everything had changed. The government may have seen fit to ignore us so far, but we aren't finished yet. You can no more resign citizenship in a time of war than you can resign from the human race. In September 1945, nearly 1,000 renunciants formed the Tule Lake Defense Committee. Wayne Collins was chosen as their representative. Renunciation was not the product of free will, but forced upon them by the unlawful detention and conditions prevailing at Tule Lake Center, for which the government alone was responsible. On November 13th, 1945, 2 days before the deportees were scheduled to start, "Sir, this is an inordinate amount of paperwork." "Why, yes, it is." Collins filed habeas corpus suits representing 935 plaintiffs. Theodore Ted Tamba, a Japanese-American attorney and an associate of Collins, delivered the news. It worked! Mitigation hearings are being scheduled now. We can give you more details. Takei, yes, your hearing has been scheduled for. Wayne Collins had gotten Mama a mitigation hearing just 2 days before the ship sailed. Our legal defense was led by Mr. Collins in the San Francisco branch of the American Civil Liberties Union. Less comforting is the fact that they were the only branch of the national organization to take a stand against unlawful imprisonment of American citizens. The ship that would have deported us to Japan left the United States with a full manifest, but we were still in Tule Lake. Wayne Collins saved us in the nick of time. This court moves to mitigate deportation, and of more than 3,000 people that received hearings, nearly 90% were released. Though it took many years and tireless dedication to restore Mama's citizenship. Thank you, Mrs. Takei. Hopefully this will settle the matter once and for all. No, sir. Collins, I who owe you a great deal of thanks. But in 1945, courtroom success meant we were cleared to relocate anywhere in America. Let's go home. What do you say, George? I like when Mama smiles. In his selfless commitment to our cause, Wayne Collins determined the course of my destiny and that of many other Japanese Americans. Internees were to be given a one-way ticket to anywhere in the United States. A decision now faced us of where to go. Let's go back to Los Angeles. Start over there. Is it safe for us? Maybe not welcoming us after the war. Well, where else would we go? Your brother says Salt Lake City is welcoming, not like the coast. But Salt Lake City isn't home. Los Angeles is our home. It can be our home again. Many happy memories there. Not until we know it's safe for our kids. I'll go alone and see how it is. If it is safe, would you agree to it? Yes. After much consideration, it was decided we might finally go back home. December 1945. We celebrated one last final Christmas at Tule Lake. I remember every other Christmas in camp except for the ones without Daddy. He had left the week before to test the climate of Los Angeles and find us a home. A few months had passed. We were nearly the last remaining internees on our block. Only hours remained before our ride would arrive to take us to the train station. This place that held so many memories, good and bad, was now silent and empty. After four long years, our days behind barbed wire had come to an end. As we neared Los Angeles, the city glistened in the sunlight. This is where Daddy was waiting for us. That's Los Angeles City Hall. That's where Daddy and Mama were married. It was totally unfamiliar, but that day I felt an instant connection to the majestic city, my birthplace, our new home. Daddy! Oof, I've missed you too. After 10 long weeks, we were together again. Our first home after the camps was on Skid Row. We were now living among derelicts and drunkards. I remember the stench of urine all over, on the street, in the alley, everywhere. It was a horrible experience for us. It was traumatizing. Mama, let's go back home. Sometimes we longed for the barbed wire fences because to us, that was home. Our childhood continued to be made up of grotesquely abnormal circumstances. Don't worry, there are other families here from the camp too, which would eventually become our normal. They're staying at a hotel. It had become routine to line up 3 times a day to eat lousy food in a noisy mess hall, but the routines of the incarceration had been thrown out. This way, Henry, now we found ourselves in constantly noisy surroundings with perpetual stench. But children are amazingly adaptable. We would survive this experience too. It's only temporary. Even more so than the filthy room, the racket, and the flashing red lights and the awful smell, the most challenging adjustment was the stairs. Having never lived in a 2-story building before, stairs were nothing normal to us. In addition to his day job as a dishwasher, Daddy owned a small employment agency in Los Angeles' Little Tokyo district. Thank you, Mr. Takei. There were several Japanese Americans starting over just like us. They turned to their former block manager, my father, to assist them. He did everything he could to help get them back on their feet. But this could not sustain us for long as Daddy was not making commission for these services. He couldn't bring himself to take money from these struggling people who had nothing. Eventually, Mama demanded that he close shop. Many others like us find work. We sacrifice enough. Time to take care of us now. Okay, what would you say to going back into the dry cleaning business? After 6 weeks, we descended the stairs of Alta Hotel for the last time. It was off to